also to experience, inshallah, this love for him. In order to have very organized and systematic, structured, and scholarly discussion, after lots of thinking, I decided to choose a section of Al-Mahajjah al-Bayda for our discussion, because I didn't want to just give some lectures. I wanted to, inshallah, have a comprehensive discussion as much as time permits. In order to appreciate this book, I have to introduce two important personalities. One is Abu Hamid Muhammad Ghazali. The other is Mullah Muhsin Faiz Khashan, a very outstanding figure from Sunni world and a very outstanding figure from the Shia world. Two of the best examples of scholarship from both traditions of Islam have contributed to this book. I don't know how much you are familiar with Ghazali. Ghazali is one of the greatest scholars in the Sunni world. And for sure, when it comes to Orientalists, is one of the few people at the top that they know and they write about and they refer to. He's very well known and respected. He has many books, and although he was Ash'ari, but he had also great interest in spirituality, Sufism, or mysticism. And one of his great works is Ihya Ulum al-Din, revival of the sciences of religion. This is one of the masterpieces on the science of akhlaq in Islam. Very important book, Ihya Ulum al-Din. He has very interesting also life. If you get chance, please study about him, find lots of literature about him. And it is very interesting that he, like many other people, experienced difficulties of life, beginning with being orphaned. His father was a very committed person. He used to attend lectures of ulama, of fuqaha, and taking his two sons with him, but soon he died. And he asked someone to be his guardian and look after these two sons with the money that he had left. But after some time, the guardian said, now the money is finished, I am not able to look after you. You have to join madrasa or hawza or seminary and rely on the little monthly gift that they give to the students. So from young age, he started his studies. He was born in the city of Tus. You know Tus? Tus is near Mashhad. Tus used to be a very important city when Mashhad was not yet a city, so Tus was very important. And for a study, he went to Neyshabur. He went to the hub of learning in that region. And there's a beautiful story that he says he took a great lesson from that story. When he was studying, he used to take lots of notes. One of the important recommendations in Islam is to take notes. I see you are taking notes with your brain, but Islamically it's very good if you take notes. Hadith says, قَيِّدُ الْعِلْمَ بِالْكِتَابِ. You have to capture and preserve knowledge by writing. There is a very beautiful hadith that Rasulullah said to one of his writers, one of his kutab, when he wanted to leave for a break, to do some errands, Rasulullah said, don't put the pen on the floor. Put the pen behind your left ear. You see today, some people, some technicians, they put the pen here. Rasulullah advised this. It means that it has to be always handy, and also maybe it shows the respect that we should show to pen. Pen is very important. Allah swears by pen. Nun wal qalam wa ma yasturun. So Ghazali, as a student, as a person who was very interested in knowledge, he used to take notes. And for him, these notes were very important. So when he was going once from Nishabur to Tus, he was stopped by, some thieves that in the past they used to stop groups, caravans, of course, if individual passengers, but even groups, they used to loot them, rob them. So they were checking properties and belongings of every person one by one. And when they reached the belongings of Ghazali, there was a pack. Ghazali said, please take everything, just don't touch this. They said, no, we want to see. They thought maybe it's something very valuable, something which is maybe gold or jewel. They opened, they're just papers with some notes on them. They said, what is this? He said, for you it's not important, but this is result of many years of my study. Please don't touch it. And one of the thieves said something very important. He said, if your knowledge is on the paper and then you can lose it, this is not knowledge. Knowledge must be in your mind, in your heart. And Ghazali says, I took great lesson from this. He has beautiful, experiences of life that you would see how much he was receiving attention from the public, even from the kings, but he was always trying to isolate himself and have a life of spirituality. So, Ghazali wrote this book, Ihya Ulum al-Din, several thousand pages. Mullah Muhsin Faiz Kashani, several centuries after him. So Ghazali died in 501. He was born in 450, 451, and he died in 501. Mullah Muhsin Faiz Kashani, after 500 years almost, chose this book as a very valuable book, but he found that it needs some extra work. I am sure you are familiar with Mullah Muhsin Faiz Kashani. He is one of our great scholars. He studied with important personalities like Sheikh Bahari, like Mir Damad, like Mullah Sadra. He married to daughter of Mullah Sadra, and he has books on tafsir. He has books on hadith. Al-Wafi is a great work that he has done on hadith. He has many books on aqaid, etc. Mullah Muhsin Faiz Kashani. His grave is in the shrine of Imam Reza alayhi salam in the basement. So Mullah Muhsin Faiz says that I found this book very valuable, but there are some issues that needed correction. And there are also something that could be summarized. And also, he says, I wanted to add some of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So, and also he said, I wanted to reintroduce this book. Therefore, he spent lots of time on producing Al-Mahajjatul Bayda fi Tahdhib al-Ihya. And this is also interesting for us, that our scholars 400 years ago, they had such openness, and we have many, many cases that a Sunni comments on the Shia book. Like many Sunni scholars have commented on Tajreed by Khaja Nasir, or a Shia comments on a book by a Sunni. There was such openness. We have stories of our ulama studying in cities where all scholars were Sunni, and vice versa. Unfortunately, recently we have this bad habit of, takfiri movement. Otherwise, for most part, this was not the situation between Sunni and Shia, and I hope, inshallah, this unity can be promoted and can be established and become the norm everywhere. We can have our own ideas, but we can respect each other and benefit from each other's heritage. So, this book, Mahajjatul Bayda, comes in 8 volumes. He has divided this, like Ghazali, into 4 major parts. Al-Ibadat, about acts of worship. Al-Adat, about habits. And then Al-Muhlikat and Al-Munjiyat, those vicious traits of character that can destroy a human being, and those things that can save a human being. So in the 8th volume, it has this section, فَالْمَحَبَّةِ وَالشَّوْقِ وَالْأُنْسِ وَالرِّضَى. Unfortunately, Mahajjatul Bayda is not available in English, but Al-Ihya by Ghazali is available in English, so you can at least have part of it in English. And inshallah, I will try to explain. Just to give you a taste of this discussion, I share with you what is mentioned at the very beginning of this section. In the rhetorics, in the science of rhetorics, or al-balagha, they say there is a technique. One of the beauties of writing is this, that in the beginning of your book, you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make your beginning of your sermon, after hamd and praising Allah, with words that relate to the subject. They call it bara'at istihlal. Means at the beginning, when you are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutation to the Prophet, you also make some hint about the topic. And it's so beautifully and so deeply written that I think needs hours of discussion, just this paragraph. But I just quickly translate, and inshallah we will start the discussion. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah alladhi نزح قلوب أوليائه عن الالتفات إلى متاع الدنيا ونظرته. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who emptied hearts of his awliya from love for dunya and love for the beauties and attractions of dunya. We have only one heart, whether you like it or not. ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه. We don't have two hearts, we have only one heart. If dunya captures our heart, there is no room for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures our heart, dunya has no attraction. You cannot have both dunya as something that gives you motivation and all the reasons for life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together. You have to choose one. As we have in Hadith Qudsi, Al-Qalbu Haramullah, Fala Tuskin Haramallah Ghayrallah. Our heart belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only place that we can welcome Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is heart. Even mind is not enough. Only heart. Allah says in another Hadith Qudsi, لا يسعني أرضي ولا سماي ولكن يسعني قلب عبدي المؤمن. Neither a sky nor earth can contain me. Only the heart of my believing servant can host me, can contain me. So, it's a matter of heart. He says, Allah has emptied the heart of his awliya from attention to mata'ud dunya, goods of dunya, wa nadrataha, and the beauty of an attraction of dunya. وَصَفَّى سَرَائِرَهُمْ عَنْ مُلَاحَظَةِ غَيْرِ حَضْرَتِهِ. Allah has cleaned and purified their inner selves from paying attention to anything other than his presence. If we really appreciate the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing else would be interesting to us. Imagine if you go to a gathering that our most beloved, for example, personalities are there. Either Ma'sumin or, our Maraji, great ulama are there. If there is such personality, we wouldn't then look around. We do not look at, for example, the surroundings of that place or people who are in that place. We will try to focus our sight on that person. Awliyaullah, who feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't look around and they don't pay attention to anything else unless as necessity. Yes, sometimes as necessity you have to leave and come back, but not that you wish to do so. ثم استخلصها للعكوف على بساط عزته. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified the hearts of his awliya for doing i'tikaf around his dignity. Imagine there is a besat. Besat is like, for example, a table, a banquet. So, besat izzati. When they understand the izzah of Allah, they want to do ukuf. They want to do i'tikaf. They don't want to go anywhere else. Then he says, ثُمَّ تَجَلَّى لَهَا بِأَسْمَائِهِ وَصِفَاتِهِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifests himself to them through his names and attributes. You know, we hear things, but we may not appreciate. We hear Rahman, Rahim, Subbuh, Quddus, all these beautiful names of Allah, all these Asma al-Husna. But if we are not prepared, we don't appreciate that much. It doesn't have deep impact on us. We hear, but our heart is not open. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifests himself through these names and these attributes to his lovers, then they would fall in love. They cannot hear these words without being overwhelmed. Me and you can easily hear 100 times Al-Wadud, and maybe we feel happy but not very much overwhelmed. But a lover of Allah, if you say 2-3 times in front of him Al-Wadud, he will be overwhelmed. He cannot cope with this. He says it's too much. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would manifest, would have tajalli for his awliya bi asma'ihi wa sifatihi hatta ashraqat bi anwar ma'rifatihi, till their hearts will start illuminating with the lights of his ma'rifah. True ma'rifah for Allah illuminates our hearts through ma'rifah. ثم كشف لها عن سبحات وجهه. Then Allah unveils the purities and beauties of his face for them. He removes hijab which are before our eyes. He doesn't have hijab. We have hijab. For his lovers, he removes hijab from before their eyes. And then what happens? This is more than that tajalli. This is removal of hijab. After that, حتى احترقت بنار محبته. Then their hearts will be burnt with the fire of love. It's not just illuminated now, it becomes blaze of fire of love. But then what Allah does with his lovers is that for testing them and for also increasing their interest and also for letting them continue their life, so after showing himself to them, then he somehow hides himself. He doesn't always make himself available. ثم احتجب عنها بكنه الجلال. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps a veil between them, him and themselves. حتى طاحت في بيداء كبريائه وعظمته. Then they will be somehow perplexed. They are overwhelmed with the love of Allah, but Allah now has kept some veil after manifesting himself, after burning their heart with love, so that they realize with humbleness that they have to work harder. This doesn't let them to be praising themselves. فَكُلَّمَا اهْتَزَّتْ لِمُلَاحَظَةِ كُنْهِ الْجَلَالِ خَشِيَهَا مِنَ الدَّهْشِ مَغْبَرَّ فِي وَجْهِ الْعَقْلِ وَبَصِيرَتِهِ. Whenever they want to understand deeper the core, the essence of Allah, then they cannot. They realize that it's too much for them. Like if you want to keep looking at sun, you cannot keep looking at sun. It's too much for them. But on the other hand, كُلَّمَا هَمَّتْ بِالْإِنْصِرَافِ عَنْ آيَسَ. When they want to get despaired and say, it seems that there is blockage, I am not suitable, then Allah shows them a little bit more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very much observing their condition. He shows himself, he attracts them, they fall in love, they go forward, but then he a little bit hides himself so that their interest increases, their humbleness increases, they work harder. When they want to get dispersed, he doesn't let them get dispersed, he shows himself again. This goes on and off till we are in this dunya, unless maybe for mukhlasin. Then he sends salutations to the Prophet and his companions and his household. Now, what inshallah we are going to do is we are going to have some discussion about significance of love or mahabba for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and Hadith. And maybe today also I mentioned just 2-3 examples. And then inshallah after that we will talk about haqiqatha. What is the reality of love? Because many of us may think we have love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have love for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. We have love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But the love of Allah and love for the sake of Allah has a reality, and this reality is not ambiguous. We can learn what is the reality of love and test ourselves. And what are the causes of this love? And then about the fact that only Allah deserves our love, and anything which is godly, not independent from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then about the fact that the greatest pleasure that human beings can get is an-nazaru ila wajhillah. If we can look at the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, not physical face. The face of Allah, which is mentioned in the Quran and also in Abrahamic religions. And then about those things that strengthen love. We will talk about these things. And also why people are different. Why some people's hearts seem to be more prepared, or they more quickly can experience this. Some people seem they are very slow, or they have some blockage. And inshallah, if there is time, then we can talk about shawq and uns, eagerness and acquaintance with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, to begin with, as something that inshallah you can reflect, but we cannot complete the first discussion, I just mentioned something that we find in the Quran about mahabba for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have lots of beautiful hadiths from different sources here, but inshallah tomorrow we can discuss about the hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that there are people that He loves them and they love Him. Man yartadda minkum an deenih fasawfa ya'ti Allahu biqawmin yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbunah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if any of you, after embracing faith, after becoming a believer, wants to leave, wants to go backward, Allah is going to bring a group of people. It means that Allah has no kind of promise which is unconditional to any nation, that no matter what you do, you are going to be pleasing to God, Allah is going to reward you, you will have salvation. No, it's based on what you do, on your practice. Any nation cannot feel safe with respect to the consequences of their bad practices. Muslims, Christians, Jews, whoever receives support of Allah, it's conditional. If they change, فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَهُ. Allah will bring some people that they love Allah and Allah loves them. there are here in the books of tafsir reference to this hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to Salman, that the people that this ayah is pointing to are the nation of Salman, who were not at that time believers in Islam, but later they believed, and they actually, as we have in many hadiths, that Rasulullah said, you are going to fight them ala tanzil, and they are going to fight you back ala ta'wil. You are going to fight to make them accept Islam, or some of you, not that Rasulullah was recommending that, but means this is going to happen. You want to teach them tanzil, means the literal revelation, but they are going then to teach you ta'wil, the true understanding. In any case, yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbuna. This is my point. You can read more about this ayah in the books of tafsir. So it shows that this is such a great quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the top of description, He says, فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَ. Allah loves them and they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one ayah. Another ayah that again is very famous, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Believers have greater love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Love for Allah must be greater than any love that we have. At least, I say at least, because for awliyaullah, they don't have any other love. To begin with, we should love Allah more than our car, our house, our farm, our land, our business, our family. To begin with, we love Allah more than these things. But later, we should love these things under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if something cannot be loved for the sake of Allah, we should leave it. Not that, you deceive yourself. Do everything and you say for the sake of Allah. No. You have to see what you can love for the sake of Allah, then you love them. For sure, you love your father, mother, spouse, children, friends, for the sake of Allah is possible. For the sake of Allah. But love for children, love for family, love for business should not be independent from Allah, let alone greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Okay, inshallah we will talk about this more tomorrow. Tonight is the night that in the history of Islam is very important. Not only is the beginning of Islamic calendar, Islamic lunar year, but also many important incidents has happened in this night and in tomorrow, which is the first day of Muharram. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on his way from Mecca to what ended to be Karbala, although in the beginning the plan was not to go to Karbala, was to go to Kufa after receiving invitations. But anyway, with the story that you know, it ended with a stationing in Karbala. Although this was known from before, but I'm talking on the surface, the plan was not to go except to Kufa. On the way, in this time, 1st of Muharram, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is stationed in a place which was known as Qasr Bani Muqatil. And it was there that Imam Hussein alayhi salam met Ubaydullah ibn Hurr al-Ju'fi. And Imam was so kind that he invited Ubaydullah. Although in general, this is a discussion that we have in our hadith, that in general, al-imamu yu'ta wa la ya'ti. There is a difference between prophet and imam. I don't want to go into that discussion. In general, people have to go and find the imam. But he was so kind that he offered on many occasions to people on the way, and also many times in Karbala, even on the day of Ashura, he offered this kind invitation, so that whoever has a little space in his heart can be changed, can be transformed. So he invited Ubaydullah ibn al-Hurr al-Ju'fi, but as you know, unfortunately, he didn't accept, he didn't welcome. Also, we have something interesting, again, related to the story of Karbala. Many years later, it was the first of Muharram when Ibn Shabib met Imam Riza alayhi salam. And Sheikh Sanuq rahmatullah alayhi in his Amali and also in Uyun Akhbar al-Riza quotes this hadith that Imam Riza alayhi salam asked Ibn Shabib, are you fasting? Based on this hadith, we can understand that the fasting of the first day of Muharram is highly recommended. Fasting of the first day of also some other days. Not Tasu'a, not Ashura, but first, third, and seventh according to some hadith. So, Imam asked him, are you fasting? And mentioned how much reward is and benefit is for fasting the first day of Muharram, and referred to the story of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and said that historical sentence, Yabna Shabib, O son of Shabib, in kunta baqiyan ala shay fabki ala al-husn. If for any reason you are going to cry, think of tragedy of Karbala and switch the reason of crying to the musibah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This is what I understand from this sentence. In kunta baqiyan, if you are going to cry for shay, for anything, fabki, cry for Imam Hussein. Because any musibah compared to that is nothing. We human beings need to sometimes cry. Crying can be very healthy. Of course, if you cry too much can be unhealthy. But crying sometimes is very healthy for body and for the soul. It has lots of advantage. If we can cry out of fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we can cry for the injustice that we see happening in the world, it's very good. But something that, if you are crying for any calamity, any tragedy, can be the greatest reason for crying is crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And Imam Riza alayhi salam after that mentions how Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed, that I don't want to mention now. So this not only, I think, gives you blessings of mourning for Abu Abdullah and lots of reward that you get, but also I think has some psychological impact. Sometimes, I have a little debt. I don't know. People have not been in good terms with me. I have difficulty at home or in job. So I want to, be alone and cry, or I want, very sad, very upset. But when I think of Abu Abdullah salam, and what he went through and what his family and companions went through, then for me all these things look little, look not significant. And if I still want to cry, let me cry for something which is worth crying. So not only you are getting to get reward and light for crying for Abu Abdullah, automatically you would find that your problems are not that great that they used to appear. I don't know, have you experienced this or not? Our problems, or even our happy and joyful occasions, many times, if I don't want to exaggerate, I could say easily 99%, but I can say to great extent at least, they rely on your internal condition. Let me give you examples. If we have very delicious food, how much are you going to enjoy? How much pleasure are you going to get? You cannot say it just depends on the food and how well it is cooked and how delicious it is. That is one element. But it very much depends on your condition. If you are not in a good condition, you may not enjoy at all. If your physical health is not good, for example, if you have cold, you may not feel any taste. Or if you are very busy with something, or imagine, God forbid, you have received very bad news, you have lost someone, and then there's a delicious food. You are not enjoying. It's the same food. But if you are happy, if you are relaxed, if you are with good people, people that you love their company, the pleasure goes very high. Calamities are also like this. Sometimes I'm already tired, exhausted, and sad. Even a little thing can trigger me. Sometimes I am in a good mood, I am in a good condition, I am happy. I receive sad news. Alhamdulillah, we can still continue. So, good and bad incidents, they have some impact, but I can tell you greatest part of impact, greatest factors are personal, are internal, not external. You can give someone everything from this world, still they don't enjoy, still they are not happy with their life, still they are suffering. And you can have someone who is very poor and ill and is very happy. It's very personal. I never forget once, many years ago, maybe more than 20 years ago, I visited a family and they were poor. The children were asking father to give permission to take 1 cubic sugar and eat. We never, take the cubic sugar as a sweet. Always if there's tea, we take it, or we say and. But these people were so poor that even taking 1 cubic sugar was like, giving them a piece of cake. And still they had to take permission. It was not available to them. That child from that cubic sugar can get the pleasure that many children in rich countries would not get even if you give them the best cake. It's very much depending on your condition. So if we remember suffering of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam and calamity of Karbala, and see how they dealt with and how they managed it, then we would realize that we should also be strong, we should also be patient, and we should not let small things, no matter how much great they may look in the first sight, destroy our resistance, destroy our resilience, destroy our power, destroy our integrity. So Imam Reza alayhi salam said, if you are going to cry for anything, cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I would like to end with this poem, which is about actually beginning of Muharram. This is in Farsi, and I will try also to translate. As-salam I promise to Allah, if you let me be in Muharram one more time, I am going to stop committing sins. I am going to repent. Har Muharram zir deyn sulh آقاییم ما با امام مجتبی اشفع لنا را خواستم. Muharram not only connects us to Imam Hussein, it connects us to Imam Hassan also. It was a brave decision of Imam Hassan that enabled us to witness this day. کربلایی نیستم اما تو شاهد باش که هر دعایی کردم اول کربلا را خواستم. I was not able to be in Karbala this year, but you be witness that in every dua I wanted to visit Karbala. 60 شب از صبح تا شب نوکری در روزه ها، طعنه خوردن سوختن پای شما را خواستم. I wanted to be able to show my servitude in Muharram and Safar for 60 days. I am happy to receive any blame. I am happy to receive and take any blame. گرچه ناقابل تر از این حرفا هستم، ولی یک زیارت اربعین پایین پا را خواستم. Although I am not worthy, but I still ask for tawfiq to visit Imam Hussein on the day of Arba'in and be close to his feet. از نجف تا کربلا پای پیاده دست جمع روزه خواندن بین این صحن و سرا را خواستم. I am requesting Allah that we can go together from Najaf to Karbala and cry on the way Masaib of Abu Abdullah. اهل عالم دارد از رحمان ماتم میرسد، حسینی ها یا علی دارد محرم میرسد. We request Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to welcome us in this month of Muharram with prepared hearts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our sins and remove any obstacles between us and Him. Oh Allah, please grant your shifa and healing to all brothers and sisters who are here in any part of the world. Please send your rahmah and maghfirah to all mu'mineen and mu'minat who have passed away, especially those who have rights upon us. Please bless those people who organize majalis of Abu Abdullah, who attend these majalis, who support these majalis, who pray for the borders of Abu Abdullah. بحق محمد وآل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
اللهم صل على